Okay, so previously on the book of Shmuel Part Bet, we saw the secret life of Amasa, who we proposed was in fact the inside man propelling the rebellion of Sheva ben Bichri. We noted that Yoav seemed to be hunting Amasa and explained the poor handling of Amasa's corpse as part of the fallout of the ongoing war. I know we mentioned the Gemara about the halachic question as to whether or not Sheva should have been handed over to Yoav. We didn't quite touch on the fact that even if they were allowed to hand Sheva ben Bichri over to Yoav, who says they could kill him? Right? Yoav says, "Give us Sheva ben Bichri. He's a rebel, so then let him stand trial." They killed him and tossed his head over. Meaning, even if he was a Mar B'Malchus, doesn't he get his day in court in front of David? The only answer I can come up with is that this is actually a proof that anyone can kill a Mar B'Malchus at the behest of the king. In this chapter, we begin the coda of Sefer Shmuel by pivoting back in time. David is dealing with a famine that is once again tied to Givon, a place and a people which has an outsized impact on our whole book. Perhaps now we can see why earlier Shimi ben Gera was so livid at David. David essentially wiped out nearly the entire family of Shaul, even after he made an oath to preserve them. So without any further ado, we're going to pick up with chapter 21. Okay. Hey, Charles, are you there? You're on mute, so I don't know if you can hear me.
Sure. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my computer appears to be having seizures. I don't know why.
All good, no problem. So we're going to start with chapter 21 now. Vayhira av bimei David shalosh shanim shana achar shana acharei shana. So there's a famine now in the days of David, 3 years in a row. Vivakesh David es pnei Adonai, and David inquires after Hashem, meaning like the Urim v'Tumim. Vayomer Adonai el Shaul v'el beis hadamim al asher himis es hagivonim. A little bit of a poem over here. It's because of Shaul and his house of Damim, meaning like his blood-stained house, and because of the fact that he killed the Givonim. This is the first we're hearing of Shaul killing the Givonim, and it seems surprising to us because, okay, if that's what Shaul did, then punish Shaul. What does that have to do with David, right? So why is there a famine? And Chazal explained that David actually tried to figure this out before, assuming that it was something that he did. That in terms of being a leader, like he went to figure out maybe people are sitting with Avodah Zarah, or maybe it's immorality, or maybe they didn't pay their debts. And finally, he realized it's got to be something that has to do with me personally, and that's when he asked the Urim v'Tumim. What is the story with the Givonim? So Chazal explained that they lost their livelihood because of Shaul. Meaning Shaul, there's one way to read this is Shaul didn't kill the Givonim. Shaul made it like the Givonim were dead because the Givonim worked in Nov, in the Mishkan. And so when Shaul wipes out Nov, then the Givonim are out of a job and they become impoverished, and it's as if he killed them. That one is a little bit hard for me to understand because I believe after the Mishkan left Nov, it went to Givon.
Get another job.
Get another job. Yeah, that's fair too.
The Givons were the ones that pretended to be.
Yes, correct. They're the ones who
to be not from the 7 nations.
Right. They tricked Yoshua. Yes.
Yeshua, right. Okay.
It's also not clear why Shaul would need to be bound by the oath that Yoshua made to the Givonim. Like Yoshua said, okay, he promised, but I don't know if that's something that is that Shaul has to then keep to. Okay. So
that's what they say. The livelihood is because
right.
they already know.
Right. So V'yikra HaMelech LaGivonim. So David calls them up and he's like, look, what's it going to take to put this behind us? And he says to them, and then we get this break in the middle of the pasuk. The Navi wants us to know. By the way, V'hagivonim lo b'mnei Yisrael hema. These are not Jews, because you're going to hear what they say, And this is not the way a Jew responds to this type of situation. Because they're from the Amorites or the Canaanites, whatever, they're from the land of Canaan. Bnei Yisrael nishbu lahem vayivakesh Shaul lahakosam bekanoso livnei Yisrael v'Yehuda. And Shaul tried to wipe them out in his zeal for the people of Yisrael and Yehuda. So another of the explanations is that they were part of Shaul's purges of the Ov and Yedoni. That Shaul was on the warpath to wipe out all of the Ov and Yedoni. If the Givonim were practicing that those types of behaviors, overly much, so Shaul made no bones about getting rid of them as well. There's one statement from Chazal that Shaul killed 7 of them. And it goes through what their jobs were, and that's why we're going to see 7 people have to be killed in their place. It's interesting to me that the Givonim, that we're focused on the Givonim, because they are the ones who duped the leader, which is a parallel to everything we've been saying since the sin of Bathsheba, that the leader keeps getting duped into pronouncing misjudgments. That's what happened with Yoshua. It's interesting that's what we're kind of dealing with over here as well. There is a, what is it, Mitzudas David? Let's see. No, we'll have to come back to it. Okay. So let's just go on to Pasuk Gimel. Vayomer David el Hagivonim, Ma'aseh lachem. What can I do? B'ma'achaper, and how can we have a kapara, an expiation? Is JPS. Ubarchus nachlas Adonai, so that you will bless the nachal of Hashem, and let bygones be bygones, so that we can put an end to this this famine. Vayomru lo Hagivonim. The Givonim reply, Ein lanu kesef v'zahav im Shaul v'im beito. We have no interest in gold and silver with Shaul and his household. Ve'en lanu ish lahamis v'Yisrael, and we have no interest in claiming the life of any other Jew. Vayomer ma'atem omrim e'eselachem. Whatever you say, I will do, says David. Vayomer el hamelech ha'ish asher kilanu, the man who massacred us, v'asher and spilled our blood, nishmadnu mehisyatsev b'chol gevul Yisrael. He exterminated us so that we should not survive in any of the boundaries of Yisrael. Yutan lanu shiva nashimi banav. Give us 7 of his sons. V'hoka'anum ladonai b'giv'at Shaul b'chir Adonai. Vayomer hamelech ani etein. So we're going to take 7 of his male sons, and we're going to impale them before Hashem in, of all places, Givat Shaul, named after Shaul. And this is almost like said sarcastically. We're going to place them in Givat Shaul, and then we take the word Shaul and almost read it twice. V'hokna'um la Hashem begivat Shaul. Who is Shaul? Shaul is Bechir Hashem. This is the Givonim talking. So they don't really mean Shaul. It's almost like they when the name Shaul comes out of their mouth, they have to utter this almost like rhetorical statement. Shaul, the one that Hashem chose, even though they clearly are have an antipathy for Shaul. And David says, Ani etain, I will give you those 7 people who you can then impale in Givat Shaul as a punishment for Shaul having wiped out the Givonim. That is what we've just read. There's a chazal that the words Bechir Hashem were added by the Bat Kol. The Givonim would never call Shaul Bechir Hashem. To me, it's crazy that the king agrees to this, because this is it's a very hard thing to understand. Lo yamusu avos albanim, right? We have a general principle that these 7 people are innocent, right? So how is it that we're putting them to death for the sins of their father, who is not even alive anymore? Okay, Vayachmol hamelech al Mephibosheth. But David, remember, has already had interactions with Mephibosheth. He has Mephibosheth eating at his table, so he has mercy on Mephibosheth, ben Yehonatan ben Shaul, al Shavuos Adonai asher beinotam, because there was an oath between he and them. Ben David u ben Yehonatan ben Shaul, that David made an oath. Really, he made an oath to Shaul also, but certainly he made an oath to Yehonatan that he would not wipe out all of his family, and now he's forced to wipe out nearly all of Shaul's family, so at least keep Mephibosheth from being included in that decree. So now we have to figure out who are these 7 people. So this woman has appeared a few times before. This was a woman who was a concubine to Shaul HaMelech, and later on we had with Ishbosheth, the Abner took her, and now she appears again. It seems that she has 2 sons. Asher Yalda Shaul, that she bore to Shaul before he passed away, as Armonivias Mephibosheth. This is a different Mephibosheth, not the one we just mentioned. The S Chameshis B'nei Michal Bat Shaul, and the 5 sons. This is even more surprising, of Michal, the daughter of Shaul, except that we know that Michal, the daughter of Shaul, did not have 5 sons. We were told that that she had no sons until the day of her death. So even weirder, Asher Yalda Adriel ben Barzilai Mecholati. She was not married to Adriel ben Barzilai Mecholati. Meirav, Shaul's other daughter, was in fact the one who was married, and it seems from Chazal that these were actually Meirav's children. But we have a principle that if someone raises the children of someone else, it's like you're their parent. So even though Michal was not their mother, she raised them, and therefore they're being called her children. Okay. So David takes these 7 people. There's a whole interesting gemara about how David decided which people to take. He passed them in front of the Aron, and maybe they touched the Aron, or it's hard to understand, but it says something to the effect of that the Aron grabbed them, and whoever the Aron grabbed, those were the ones that were kind of sentenced to death.
Well, then already you're answering a different question that shows that there was divine.
Right. Then it's really Hashem saying these are the,
And also we already saw that Hashem seems okay with punishing those who don't really deserve it, because he threw a famine for 3 years.
Right. Right. That's an excellent point. Right. It's more like there's a problem that has to be addressed, and until that's addressed, it's almost like we say by the Haggadah that, like, when the Malach is out to destroy, just it doesn't matter. We're not going to decide if you're deserving, not deserving. V'yidnei b'yad hagivonim. So David hands them over to the Givonim, v'yokium, and they impale them bahar lifnei Adonai, on a mount before Hashem. Vayiplu shiv'atam yachad, and all 7 of them died at the same time. I think it was Rabbi Silver that points out there's only 2 times, maybe it was Polson. There's only 2 times where you have this phrase vayipalu sevatam yachad, that they all fell down dead together. That was in the beginning of Shmuel Bet, when there was fighting between the men of Ishbosheth and David, and they grabbed each other's heads, and they all fell down dead together. And we're getting that repeated over here again to kind of show you that one thing led to the infighting is what led to this kind of event being able to happen. Vehemo humsu bimei ktsir barishona, betchilas ktsir sa'orim. They were put to death on the first day of the harvest, the beginning of the barley harvest. This is like straight out of Megillas Rus. So they die at the beginning of the harvest. And Vatikach Ritzba bat Ayah et Hasak, Veyatehu la el Hatzur, and Ritzba, the daughter of Ayah, takes sackcloth, and she spreads it out al Hatzur, over the rock, meaning these people, their bodies are just left out to rot, and they are not buried. And so she gives them some sort of cover. We just had, I think it was in the last parak, the same idea where Amasa is killed, the body is left, unceremoniously, and someone had to take some cloth or something to cover that body in order to give it at least a little bit of dignity. So she's doing the same thing over here. Mitchilas ksir ad tinosach mayim alehem min hashamayim. So this is also interesting. She stays there and kind of well, actually, let me finish the pasuk. And she basically stands watch over these bodies day and night, not allowing any animals to disturb them and violate the bodies. And she's there from the beginning, we said, of the harvest season until water lands on them from Shamayim, is the way the pasuk describes it. So Chazal want to read this as she's there from Nisan until, let's say, Mar Cheshvan, which is like 7 months. I think the simplest way to read this is that her protecting them for whatever amount of time led to the rain. The whole point of doing this was so that it would rain, right? There's a famine because there's no rain. So it's possible that she does this for a week and then it starts raining. The point of killing these 7 people was so that the Givonim would forgive the crime against them, and that would allow Hashem to let the rain begin. So it's not clear to me that it has to indicate that it wasn't until the rainy season. Maybe the rain came right after they completed this act. Okay, v'yugad leDavid es asher asasa ritzva bat Ayah pilega Shaul. And David hears, again, this to me it sounds almost like a callback to Megillas Rus, that David hears about the chesed that this woman does, and this inspires him because he realizes that when we said that the reason for this is because of Shaul and his house of blood, that really means there's 2 things. There's 2 problems. Problem number 1, Shaul's house of blood. Problem number 2, there's something that has to do with Shaul that wasn't done properly. And David realizes that Shaul's body was also treated inappropriately after he died, and it was recovered from the Plishtim, but it never got sort of a royal burial in his plot, his family, territory. I read that was pasuk 11, pasuk 12. Vayilech David v'ikach es atzmos Shaul v'es atzmos Yehonasan beno me'es baalei Yavesh Gilad. So if you remember, the Plishtim took the bodies and they desecrated the bodies, and then the people of Yavesh Gilad stole the bodies back. And this is going to make it a little hard to understand our pasuk. From what we saw, they burned the bodies, right? They took the remains and they burned them because they had begun to decay. So if they took them and burnt them, what are these atzamos that David is taking back? So it's either that we discussed, I think, when we talked about them burning the bodies, that maybe they burnt the stuff that came along with them, the royal robes or whatever it might be, or the word atzmos is here used almost as a stand-in for whatever the remains were of Yehonatan and Shaul. That's what was taken and brought back from Yavesh Gilad, asher gavdu osam merchov beishan asher talum shama plishim, just like what happened over here with the sons of Shaul. That's what had happened to Shaul and Yehonatan. B'yom hakos plishim as Shaul b'Gilboa. Vayal misham, and so David takes the remains of Shaul and Yehonatan from Yavesh Gilad, and he brings them up as atzmos Shaul v'as atzmos Yehonatan beno v'yasfu as atzmos hamukaim, and he also takes in those 7 sons or children of the house of Shaul who had been impaled. So he puts an end to their bodies laying out there. Vayikbaru es atzmos Shaul v'Yehonatan beno be'eretz Binyamin. And so now he gives them the burial that they deserve in Binyamin, Bitsela, Bekever Kish Aviv, in the ancestral tomb of his father Kish in Sheva. Binyamin v'yasu kol asher tzivah hamelech v'yater Elohim la'aretz achreichein. When all the king had commanded was done, Hashem responded to the plea of the land thereafter, meaning we brought the rain. Vatihi od milchama la plishtim es Yisrael v'yer David v'avadav imo v'yachmu es plishtim v'ya'ef David. Okay, so this is part of how we know that this whole parak is kind of out of order. This is a story back in time, earlier than the chronology. So chapter 20 we said was really the end chronologically of Sefer Shmuel. Chapter 21 takes us back in time to David's heyday, where he was still going out to fight. Remember, the reason he got in all this trouble with Bathsheba is because he wasn't going out to fight anymore. This was back when he was still going out to fight, and again, he has a battle with the Plishtim, and David goes out with everybody else to war, except now David is sort of at the tail end of his career, and he is ya'if, he's exhausted. He has no koach anymore they translate here as weary. to continue this this fight. V'yishbi benov asher b'lidei harafa mishkal keno shalosh meos mishkal nechoshes v'hu chagur chadasha v'yomer lahakosas David. And we're going to get into some very interesting gemarot at the end over here about who this person is. But there's a man whose name is Ishbi Benob, and he tries to kill David. He was a descendant of Harafa. Chazal say this is Harafa is the same as Orpah. And he has a bronze spear that weighs 300 shekels, and he also wore fresh armor, Chagur Chadasha. V'ya'azorlo Avishai ben Tzeruya. And now, remember, when David lost Amasa for those 3 days, and he didn't want to appoint Yoav as head of his army, the next one up was Avishai. So here we see that Avishai was actually well deserving of that honor because he saves the day. V'ya'azorlo Avishai ben Tzeruya. So David is about to get wiped out by Ishbi Benob, and Avishai comes to his rescue. Vayaches haplishti, vayamisehu, and he kills him. Az nishbu anshe David lo. And it was at this point that David's men made him take an oath to say, Lemor lo tetzu odi tanula milchama. We don't want you coming out to war with us anymore. V'lo tikaveh es ner Yisrael. We don't want to extinguish the candle of the Jewish people, the lamp of the Jewish people being David. So we would rather you stay back, not join the battle. And that's what ends up leading to the whole incident with Sheva. It's, I think, interesting to point out that when the Jewish people asked for a king in the first place, the reason they asked for a king was to fight our battles, right? So when you tell the king, we don't want you going out to fight our battles anymore, you're kind of saying like you've used up your usefulness. Like the whole reason we have a king is to do what you can't do anymore. So maybe it's time to pass on the kingship to someone who can continue to lead the Jews into battle. And it was after this, Vati od milchama hamilchama begov im plishtim. There's another battle with the plishtim. Az hika sibchai hachushosi as saf asher v'lidei harafa. So after this, we get Sibchai the Chushosi, who kills Saf, another descendant of Rafa or Harafa. Vati Omilchama begovim plishtim vayach Elchanan ben Yairi orgim beis halachmi as Golias Hagiti. So this should make all of our ears perk up because it sounds like someone else here is killing Golias Hagiti, the Eitz Chanito Kiminor orgim, and the spear that he had is like the shaft of a weaver's bar. So what are we going to do with that? What does our scroll have for you?
In English, like before it says struck down, open bracket, the brother of.
Right. So that comes actually from Divrei Hayamim, that it wasn't Goliath, that it was Goliath's brother. The other option from Chazal is that Elchanan is actually just another name for David. That one's a little bit harder because we're going to see Elchanan is listed as one of David's warriors in the next parak. Okay. Vatihi od milchama begas, because we're not done yet. Vayhi ish madon, and there was a giant man. Ve'etzba'ot yadav, ve'etzba'ot raglav, shesh v'shesh, esrim va'arba, mispar. V'gam hu yulad laharafa. And he has 6 digits on each of his hands and each of his feet, or what we will call in the medical community polydactyly. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Yes.
Although, what they don't tell you is that someone came up to him and says, "Hello, my name is Daniel.
Yeah.
Who killed my father, prepared to die."
Excellent. We were Yotze, the Princess Bride reference. Very good. So we have the 6-fingered man and 6-toed man as well. Vayicharef es Yisrael, and he taunts Yisrael, very much in line with what Goliath did. Vayakehu Yehonatan ben Shima. So this is a different Yehonatan, the son of Shima, Shima was the Achi David, the brother of David. We actually had Yonadav, who was the one that gave Amnon his the advice. So that was someone else who was a son of Shima, the brother of David. So we've now recounted 4 battles. As Arba'as Eile Yuldu Laharafa Begas. This woman Harafa or Orpah or Rafa she bore these 4 children in Gat, Vayiplu biyad Davidu biyad avadav, and they fell by the hand of David and David's men. So Chazal point out here that after Orpah left Naomi, she went back to Moab, but she also went back to her sinful ways. She ends up sleeping with many people and producing these giants, and the giants are essentially trying to the children of Orpah are coming to try to undo the success of the children of Rus, and in the end, David and his men are the victors. So, okay, there's a lot, really a lot over here. The character of Ritzvah Bat Ayah, there's a story by Sophocles of Antigone. She buries her dead at great personal risk. There's a lot of parallels in that story to ours. Let's see which one of these we can go into a little bit more detail. Okay, so the questions that we're going to have from a halachic perspective of like, how do you leave these the bodies of these people out overnight? We have a halacha that you're not lo salin nivlaso, that you can't leave the body out overnight. The Gemara deals with all this in Yevamos. So I'm going to read to you from an extended section of Yevamos 78b through 79a. But I won't give you the whole Gemara because it's very extensive. V'haksiv lo yamusu avos abanim. That was our first question, right? We don't punish the sons for the sins of the father. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan mutav shete'aker os achas min haTorah va'al yischalo shem shamayim b'far hesya. It's better that we uproot one letter of the Torah, or here maybe one word of the Torah, and not cause a chil Hashem in public. Meaning the killing of the Givonim was a chil Hashem. So we have to repair that chil Hashem, and we do essentially whatever is necessary in order to redress the chil Hashem. Vatikach Ritzvah Bar Ayah as Hasak, continues the Gemara Vatayula El Hatzur Mitchilas Ktsir Ad Nitach Mayim Alehem Min Hashamayim V'lo Nasan Of Hashamayim Lanuach Alehem Yomam V'chayas Asad Delaila V'haksiv. So the Gemara asks the obvious question: Lo salin nivlaso al ha'etz. You're not allowed to leave the corpse on the tree overnight. You have to bury them the same day. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and this is a violation of that. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok, Mutav shete'aker os achas min haTorah. It's better that one letter should be uprooted from the Torah, v'ikadeshim shamayim b'far hesya, and let it lead to a kiddush Hashem. What is the kiddush Hashem that leaving these bodies out will achieve? Shahayu ovrim v'shavrim omim. People, goyim, would walk by and they would see this sight of these bodies rotting, and they would ask, Mativan shel elu, what is the nature of, what's the sin? Who are these people? What happened over here? So they would get an answer. Halalu b'nei malachim hem. These are the sons of a king that are being left in this fashion. Pashtu yedehem begerim gerurim. And what was what was their sin? Pashtu yedehem begerim gerurim. They were responsible, or I guess inadvertently through their father, they're responsible for the fact that these gerim and not even real gerim, that these, they call them calculating converts. These gerim who were not even real gerim were harmed by them, and therefore they're being punished this way. Amru ein lecha uma shruya lehidavek ba kazo. There's no nation that is worth clinging to greater than the Jewish people. Uma b'nei melachim kach. If this is how the Jewish people treat the sons of a king, b'nei hedyotos alachas kama v'kama, imagine how much justice they administer to a regular person. Uma gerim gerurim kach. And if they do this over an infraction of people who are on the very margins of society, Yisrael alachas kama v'kama, how well are they going to take care of the Jewish people themselves? Miyad nitosvu al Yisrael 150,000. So immediately, because of this incident, there were 150,000 converts, says the Gemara. How do we know that number? Because it says in Malachim Vahi lishlomo 70,000 nosei sabal u80,000 chotzei bahar. There were 70,000 who carried stuff around, and 80,000 that were hewers of mountains. This is when they're building the Beis Hamikdash. The Dilma Yisrael Havu. So the Gemara says, well, how do you know those were converts? Maybe they were Jews. Lo Zakadaitach. They couldn't be Jews. Because of the children of Yisrael, Shlomo made no slaves. He didn't have any Jews working to do that kind of heavy manual labor. It must be that they were converts, and therefore the 70 plus the 80 gives you 150,000 converts. And the Gemara continues to try to pick the story apart a little bit just to make sure they were really converts, but it ends up sticking with that conclusion. So that is story number one from the Gemara, which is just fascinating of how we deal with some of the halachic issues related to the death of these children. I would also reference anyone who's interested. My teacher, Betzalel Naor, has a sefer called Shod Malachim, and there he goes into detail as to how the Mizbeach selected the descendants of Shaul. The last story I want to share is a Gemara in Sanhedrin, that's 95 A through B, which tells us the story of what happened between David and Ishbi Benov, and it is wild. V'ishbi Benov asher b'lidei harafa u'mishkal keno shlosh me'os mishkal nechoshes v'hu chagor chadasha v'yomer lahakoses David. That's our pasuk. My V'ishbi Benov. What is this name? Like Yishbi Benov. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Ish Shaba al Iske Nov. They darshan the whole name. He's Yishbi Benov because he came. Why was he even in existence? Because of what happened with Nov. Amar le'kadosh baruch hu leDavid ad masa yia avon zet hamum biyadecha. This part, you're partly responsible, says Hashem, for the massacre at Nov. Al yadecha neherga Nov ira kohanim ve'al yadecha nitarid dog ha'adomi ve'al yadecha nehergu Shaul shloshes banov. It's because of you that the people in Nov were killed, that Doeg ha'adomi did what he did, and that the three sons of Shaul who went out to battle with him were all killed. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, David, what would you like your punishment to be? Do you want your children to be wiped out, or do you want to be given over into the hands of your enemy? David says, I would rather be that my lineage persists and give me over into the hands of the enemy. So what happened? Yom Echad Nafik L'Schor V'Zoe Asa Satan V'Idame Le Ketavya. So one day David is out hunting with a falcon, and the Satan comes and he appears to David like a deer. So Patak Be Gira V'Lo Matya. So he shoots an arrow at him, and he doesn't hit the deer. So Mashche Adam Mate LeEretz Plishim. So the deer goes running off. David is chasing the deer in pursuit of the hunt, and he leads him all the way to the land of Plishtim. Chazieh Yishbi Benov. So David shows up in Gat, and Yishbi Benov is there, and he says, Amar Hayinu Haide Katle le Goliath Achi. Yishbi Benov is like, that's the killer of my brother Goliath. So Kafse Kamte Osve Veshadya Tute Beisadya. So what does he do? He binds him, doubles him over, and places him on the ground and casts him under a beam of an olive press to crush him. Is Ovid Nisa, there's a miracle that happens, and Makale Ara Mituse, and the ground becomes soft or lowers itself, so that even though he's pressing the bar on him, it doesn't kill him because he's able to fall down into the ground. This is what it means in the pasuk, that my steps beneath, you've enlarged my steps beneath me, that my feet did not slip. Hahu Yoma. That day, Apanya Demale Shabtahave, it was Erev Shabbos, and because it's Erev Shabbos, and Avishai is obviously getting ready for Shabbos, so Avishai ben Surya have a Kachayif Reshe ba Arba Garve Demaya. So Avishai is shampooing his hair with 4 jugs of water. Chazine Kitime Dama, and he sees these 4 bloodstains. Or Ikeda Amri also Yona Itarif Kamei, or he sees a dove that's like freaking out by his shower. So Amr Knesset Yisrael Yona Imtilia. The Jews are compared. Knesset Yisrael is compared to a Yona. Shenemer Kanfa Yona Nechba Bakesef. So Shma Mina the David Malka di Yisrael Betzara Shari. So it must be that if there's a Yona over here and it's freaking out, that David is in trouble, and therefore, Lassie, lead to me to the well. So he goes running out to find what is going on with David. Also, Lebesevolo Ashkeche Amar Tanan ein Rochvan al Suso vein Yoshvan al Kiso vein Mishtamshin b'Sharvito. I'm in David's house, but I know I can't use any of his stuff because he's the king. But b'shas sakana mai, what about if it's in a sakana of his life? Also, she'el be midrasha. So he goes to the base medrash while there's a sakana going on, and he asks, Amr le b'shas sakana shapir dami, and they tell him in the base medrash, look, if it's a shas sakana, you can ride on David's donkey. So rachve lepirde, they come the ozol kafse le'ara. So he gets on David's donkey, which rides him to exactly where he needs to go. So he comes into Gas, and he doesn't find Ishbi Benov. Instead, he finds Orpah, Ishbi Benov's mother, and she is a spinstress. She is literally working the spindle. Ki chazise pasakte lepilka shadya ilohe savala mikdala. So when she sees him, she grabs the needle from her spindle and throws it at him, trying to kill him. Amrale ulaim isili palach pakte bereshe moche vekatle. And after she fails to do so, Avishai says, she says to Avishai, young man, bring me the needle back, right? And he throws the needle back at her. It whacks her in the head and kills her. So now he finds Ishbi Benov. Amar hashta havu betrain bekatli. So Ishbi Benov is like, oh, they're ganging up on me. Now there's two of them. They're going to kill me. Patke leDavid le'ela. Remember, he has David bound up, right? So he trucks David up in the air. Vidatz le lerumche, and he puts his spear down, assuming that David's going to fall down and land on the spear, and that'll give him time while he's got David up in the air. He can make his escape. Amar Nepal Alev Niktale, Amar Avishai Shem. So Avishai says the name of Hashem, Ukme David ben Shmuel la'ara, and that because he says the special name of Hashem, David's body is suspended in the sky; it won't fall down. Ask the Gemara just a technical question. Ihu. Why doesn't David say the Shem Hashem? Why did it have to be Avishai? Because a captive doesn't remove himself from his jail. Someone else has to save him. He can't save himself. Amar le, my boys hacha. Amar le hachi amar li kudshabrichu. V'hachi ahadri le. So Avishai asked David what happened. David tells him, I told God to give me over into the hands of my enemy, and that's how I wound up here. Amar le efoch tzlosach. So he says, reverse your davening. Bar barach kira lisbun va'ad lote atzer. Let your sons be poor peddlers and let them be sellers of wax, and you should not suffer. Don't limit your expenses to leave an inheritance for your descendants. Amar le ihachi sayabahadein. If that's true, then I want your help. Okay, and this is the fulfillment of the pasuk. So the Gemara goes on, but I think we can leave it at this point. Just some very interesting, fantastical stories over here in the Gemara. But the general idea is that David is forced to pay for not only the sins of Shaul, but also it seems that from the Gemara he has some sort of accountability for what happened in Nov as well. Maybe he should have known what was going to happen, and so he's held responsible. That is the end of our parak, and please God, we will pick up next week with parak Chaf Beis. This is the end, beautiful friend. Thank you for joining us on our journey of learning, and I hope you will tune in for another episode soon, Mirz Hashem. Be well.